with a very, very special guest. There's my aloe plant over there. There's my house plant. But with a very special guest, we're here. But you can find him on YouTube. I posted, or I put a few of his links where you can find him in the description. Giants Alliance, or otherwise known as David Solow. Am I saying that right? Or you're muted. Here, let me take you off. There we go.
David Solow, you said it correctly. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, I had this as one of the topics in the show. How did you become a Giants fan? How did you get to covering them? How did you get to starting your channel? Obviously, promote yourself a little bit. What's your channel about? What do you do? Like concerning the Giants, and yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became a Giants fan.
I appreciate it. I've been a Giants fan my whole life. I just remember as like a little kid going to my grandfather's house in Queens, um, watching the Giants games. So my dad, he's a huge Giants fan as well. I used to go to Giants training camp up in Albany. Um, you know, content creator thing full time, but I've been writing for a website, G-Men HQ.
Yeah.
I got about 500,000 views on a couple of my articles about the 2020 draft. So I've been writing about the Giants since 2020. I started a YouTube channel. I just love talking Giants football. This is so much fun to me. I'm a teacher full time. That's my regular day job, but I always wondered what it would be like if I went into sports journalism as like a full-time job. So I'm trying to get like a taste of it. Um, but yeah, man, it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, I mean, no problem. I obviously, guys, this is, as you see on the titles here, around the NFL. So I'm kind of starting this, like, not really series, but I'm starting this journey around the NFL. I'm going to try to get as many guests on from different NFL teams. I'm obviously starting with the NFC, but I mean, if you guys, anyone who's watching, if you guys have any suggestions for content creators I should link up with next around the NFL, then give me a shout out on Twitter. Obviously, my Twitter handle is in the description, and you can go find his YouTube and his website that he writes for, his little section. I put that in the description as well. So go check that out, everyone. But we're going to kind of get on to some Saquon Barkley news. I guess this happened I guess it was like last week, or I think it was, yeah, I believe it was last week, where he basically said, like, he was asked about his contract situation, and he was very, 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 he was very honest with what he thought he should get paid. He said, basically, I did a lot for that offense. I did a lot. I was the reason why the Giants were so successful last year, or I was a big part of the reason why the Giants were so successful last year. So I should be paid what my impact is worth. And so what do you think of his comments? Kind of, should he be compensated above? Because right now, like, the highest paid running back is like being paid 15, 16 million. And running backs are obviously, on the out in the NFL. And so should he be compensated like a wide receiver? Because he was a very important part of the Giants offense last year. And do you like the way running backs are being treated, or should they get compensated more fairly in general around the whole NFL?
Running backs should be compensated like wide receivers for the simple fact that it's much easier to find or acquire a really good running back than it is to find a top-notch wide receiver one in the NFL. If you look at a team like the Bills, like every few years they draft a running back in the second or third rounds. Same thing with the Patriots. Right now they have Rashawn Stevenson, who's a very good running back. They drafted, I believe, in the third or fourth round. Um, So yeah, I agree with Saquon. Um, for the simple fact that the offense revolved around him last year for much of the season. He was the reason the Giants had success for, I would say, 75% of the season. And then he did start to slow down as the season progressed.
Yeah.
And that's when Daniel Jones kind of started coming into his own and becoming more comfortable in the offense. And you saw Daniel Jones threw for 300 yards in that playoff win against the Minnesota Vikings. Um, so I Saquon said what he said, that he should be compensated for the impact that he has. But I also disagree with him because I think running backs are, you know, they don't necessarily grow on trees, but they are easy to find. And you see, like, look at the Vikings. They just released Dalvin Cook, coming off one of his best seasons that he's ever had. Um, you know, running backs are easy to find, so they should not be compensated or take up a large percentage of your salary cap. The Giants drafted a rookie this year, I believe, in the fourth round out of Oklahoma, Eric Gray, who I'm pretty high on. So, do I want the Giants to re-sign Saquon Barkley? Of course I do. He's one of the
Right.
best players on the team, but do I think they should bend over backwards to give him whatever salary he wants and hurt their salary cap for the long term? I don't think so.
That's a good question. And I mean, you talk about, I think, I don't want to bring it back to my team, but the 49ers, I think, kind of started this movement of you can take a lot of running backs and just make them successful. Um, Again, they've had a lot of running backs that they go here, they're great, and then they go somewhere else and they're not so good. I mean, they made Tevin Coleman in 2019 look really good, and then he goes to I believe it was like the Jets, and he fell off completely. And so I do agree with you in that fact. And the thing with like Saquon Barkley, these different running backs, it's like with Derrick Henry, how many years did he actually was he consistently staying good? Like Derrick Henry had like 3 elite years. So like the window for a running back is very unlikely. And also considering his injury history as well. Saquon Barkley, first, I think it was 2 years of his career wasn't that healthy. And so you consider that, and now you're starting to have a lot different of a conversation. Sorry, I do think he resets the market, but it's just, yeah, like you said, it's easy to go out in the fourth, fifth round and find like, I like the Seahawks running back that they drafted this year from UCLA, Charbonnet. That guy could potentially be a star, and there's gonna be running backs. You can draft running backs fourth, fifth round and still be fine. Like running backs aren't that position where you draft in the second round unless you think they're really elite. Jahmyr Gibbs from the Lions is a exception, but and even him, it's like he's gonna have to live up to a lot of standards this year if they're gonna justify that pick. So
Said, about resetting the market, I think McCaffrey has the
yeah,
highest ever salary for a running back at 16 million a year.
16.
Your
Yep.
49ers did not pay McCaffrey that salary. I think that was a contract that
Nope.
he negotiated with the Carolina Panthers. So that's another
Exactly.
reason I think the 49ers were smart, because McCaffrey is like an exception in that he's such a good receiver. Um, he's unique in that way, which is why the Panthers ended up paying him so much. I still
Yeah.
think it was an overpay, but he's a good fit for the 49ers and what they like to do. They like to involve the running back in the passing game a lot.
Yeah.
And they could kind of keep him fresh and still use that running back by committee system that they've been so successful with. But going back to Saquon, I don't think he's going to reset the market. He actually said to the press, "I do not plan to reset the market. I just want to feel respected."
Yeah.
So, the deadline is July 17th for a contract extension. He has not signed the franchise tag. I think what's going to end up happening, if I had to make my prediction, he's going to re-sign with the New York Giants. He loves being with the Giants. But I think it's going to be closer to that July 17th deadline date.
Yeah.
So the Giants will feel a little bit more pressure and maybe want to pay him, because the only leverage he really has is sitting out. and we played Dallas week 1, and I would hate for him to have to sit out and miss
Yeah.
that game because I hate the Cowboys. I
Hey,
just
me too. Me too.
yeah.
The Cowboys, even though like my team is kind of beat their like it's been we've had our way with them for I mean the Cowboys really haven't done anything in 27 years, but it's still it I don't know. I whenever you look at interviews with the Cowboys, just to quickly get off on a rabbit trail, they are the most like widely known. They're the most hated fan base, which is hilarious.
It's like their year, and I mean, I had a lot of fun watching you guys beat the Cowboys in the playoffs last
Oh,
year.
twice in a
Um,
row.
it was awesome. It was amazing, and my favorite part of that game was the last play
Oh yeah.
when Mike McCarthy tried to get a little bit creative, I guess, and he put Ezekiel Elliott at center. And I think the plan was for to make a quick pass to the receiver and then lateral it back to Ezekiel Elliott, and he would somehow run 80 yards for a touchdown. But it was funny because he just got pancaked right away, and the play was so bad, and that's his last ever play with the Cowboys. So I thank you guys. I thank the 49ers for making Ezekiel Elliott's last play of the Cowboys such a fun play for me to watch.
Well, yeah, and the year before, I don't know if you remember that final play. It was Dak Prescott scrambling and the referee not getting in front and getting the play set in time and the game being over. So like both end of game plays ended so embarrassing. In fact, like it was hilarious.
That's all Cowboys fans talked about for like a year was that
The
play. I
refs,
almost
the
forgot about
refs.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like, come on,
yeah.
you guys are gonna lose anyway. It didn't matter. So
Exactly. Grandizer coming in here saying hate is such a strong word. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't use that as much, but I don't know. For Cowboys, just the Cowboys organization. I've met a lot of nice Cowboys fans, but um,
as a
uh,
Cowboys fan, but it's still fun when they lose. It's
yeah,
very
for
fun.
sure. Yeah. Welcome David Solow of Giants Alliance. Ever upwards. I'm not sure what that last ever upwards means, but yes, welcome. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. Hopkins, the Giants right now, they got Jalen Hyatt in the draft. I believe it was third round. I You guys re-signed Hodgins, if I'm not mistaken, but the receiver position was a big need for you guys last year. And so do you think you guys take a stab at maybe DeAndre Hopkins as the season approaches? I said that DeAndre Hopkins will be like a training camp pickup. I don't know if he's going to get picked up right away. But like, what is your guys' like cap situation looking like? Do you think that you guys can make a run at him? I mean, this would actually be a really, really good fit. I'd like to see Hopkins on the Giants.
Would obviously make the Giants a much better offense. He's one of the
Yeah,
best receivers in the NFL. He's still a number one receiver, even though he's getting up there in age. He's an incredible talent, but I don't see the Giants making that move for the simple fact that I think he'll be too expensive. They don't
right.
have the cap space currently.
Well,
Um,
and sorry to interrupt, but yeah, their cap space currently is I'm looking it up now, and it's like $4 million. So they'd have to restructure. So go ahead. Sorry.
if they really wanted to, I think they could restructure Leonard Williams' deal, who has one of the largest cap hits in the entire NFL, one of our defensive tackles. But I just don't see the Giants making that kind of move because we're not necessarily in win now mode.
Right.
I do think the Giants are going to be better this year, but I don't see us being like a serious contender for the Super Bowl this season.
Mm-hmm.
That being the case, I don't see us making such a short term move and kind of like pushing our salary cap down the road and messing with our future salary cap space and making that move. I think I like a lot of the moves we made this offseason at the receiver position. And by far the best move for our offense, I think, was adding Darren Waller, who's a
Right.
tight end. But if you really think about it, he's actually a receiver. Like Darren Waller came to the NFL. He was a receiver for the Ravens as a rookie. Um, so he's labeled as a tight end, but the Giants are going to use him in the slot. They're going to use him out wide. He's going to be their number one option in the passing game. And we made some other good moves in free agency. We added Paris Campbell, who I like a lot. He was a second round pick by the Colts a few years ago, who's had a lot of injuries. So Hopkins would be nice, but I still think the Giants are in good shape when it comes to the pass catchers, specifically Darren Waller at tight end. And I like some of the receivers we acquired as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jamison Crowder, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard. Those are all like your guys are kind of taking what a lot of teams do with the running back position, but you're saying, okay, we're going to have a guy that specifically meets, like, he's not an elite all around receiver like Hopkins maybe once was, but you're going to have Jalen Hyatt, a really good deep threat. You're going to have Paris Campbell, a taller receiver who can go up and get the ball. You're going to get Darius or Jamison Crowder, a nice slot receiver. So you're getting guys who are good at a specific part. They're good at doing a specific job on that receiver. I guess line, but and it's just all about like it's a really what I've learned is you can't compromise a team for one player, or you can't kick the can further down the road in the cap space situation for a player. Because I think at this point in his career, it's like Hopkins, is it worth the restructure? Like I could see a team like the Ravens being like, okay, we have a lot of receivers, but we're going to bring them in because the team like the Ravens has $12 million left in cap space. There are teams that they wouldn't have to really restructure much, but it's like, if you're DeAndre Hopkins, you want 13, 14, and maybe he's willing to take less for a contender, but I don't think the Giants are the type of like contending team that he would want to take less for. So that means he's probably wanting OBJ money, 15 million. And so it's like, how much is it really worth it? You have a bunch of guys who, I mean, if one guy gets injured, you're not completely dead. And like I was saying before, it's like, if you have one or two good receivers on the roster that are elite and they get injured and you have hardly any depth, I mean, the 49ers are kind of seeing it as well. They have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, but then after that, it's not so great. So it's like, I think I really like what the Giants are doing by building that kind of by committee. If one guy goes down, you just go to another slot receiver. I mean, you still got Sterling Shepard, who his season was kind of cut short last year by an ACL injury. So, yeah, I honestly, at first look, I was like, oh, the Giants really don't have that many receivers. And then I was diving into it today, and I'm like, earlier on today, and I'm like, they've brought in a nice committee of receivers. So
I agree with that. I think our depth is much better than our quality, if that makes sense. I think
yeah, exactly.
we have like 7 or possibly 8 receivers that are like NFL caliber players. And last year, the Giants had so many injuries at that position, and it's been like that for years. One thing we did do, which I really like, is we actually got rid of the turf at MetLife Stadium because we've had
You
like the
did.
worst injury
Okay.
luck.
That's
Yeah.
good.
And
Okay.
I think I remember Kyle Shanahan complaining about that when the
Oh,
49ers
everyone
came.
has.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to make a big difference in my opinion. I think Isaiah Hodgins, we haven't even mentioned. He was our best receiver last season down the
Mm-hmm.
stretch, and we picked him up off of waivers. He was an undrafted player out of Oregon State, but I'm really high on him. So if you're watching this for fantasy football purposes, Isaiah Hodgins is like a deep sleeper who I think could really have a good impact. But my number one receiver for the Giants this year is actually Paris Campbell. I really like him. I think he's really fast. He had the fastest. He ran over like 22 miles per hour on an end around. Um, so you know, Brian Dable likes those fast receivers that you can move a little bit in the slot or outside. So even though we don't have that like bona fide wide receiver one, I think our depth will make it so that we'll have a competent offense this year, and I think we could sneak into the top 10 when it comes to total offense. Because last year, Daniel Jones was definitely getting a lot more comfortable in Brian Daboll's system.
Mhm.
In his second year with Mike Kafka, with the addition of Darren Waller, I'm really high on Daniel Jones this year. He's somebody else. He's someone else I would really kind of target in fantasy football because not only is he improving at his passing, and I think his passing numbers will take a significant jump. He's one of the best running quarterbacks at running the football, and he's very athletic. He had 7 rushing touchdowns last year. So obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but I'm very high on Daniel Jones in 2023.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get into a little bit. I think I have a few words on the offensive line as well, but that offensive line, you know, wasn't. I mean, what do you think? Because they have a good offense, they have a good running back. What's your thoughts, kind of on the offensive line as well? Because I feel like against the Eagles, they kind of got shredded, but then again, the Eagles have had an amazing defensive line last year. So, um,
Giants team was outmatched last year against the Eagles. That wasn't even close. So it did leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths when it comes to the Giants' chances going into this year. But I think the offensive line will be a lot better. I think that's probably still our biggest question mark on
yeah,
offense. Evan Neal was drafted 7th overall, so he's a top 10 pick at offensive tackle, and he really struggled last year. If you look at his PFF
right,
numbers, he was one of the worst tackles in all of football. But I think he's going to be much better because this is his second consecutive season playing right tackle. At Alabama, he played his freshman season at right tackle, his sophomore year at left guard, and then he played left tackle as a junior. So it's not so easy to switch from left tackle to right tackle, as some people might think. And he really made a lot of improvements with his stance over the offseason. He worked with Willie Anderson, who was a Pro Bowl offensive lineman for the Bengals, and they really worked on his footwork and his fundamentals because he's such a big guy. He's close to 350 pounds. He's 6'8".
right.
I think he's going to make that jump at right tackle. We drafted John Michael Schmitz, I think his name is.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Second round from
se-
Minnesota.
yeah, center in college football. He's 24 years old, so I think he's going to be pro ready, and he's going to
So,
be our best
so
center
he
in a long
starts for
time.
you guys. He starts for you guys because I was going to ask you this when we got to that topic, but
In mini camp, they kind of put him with the second team sometimes just because that's what happens to rookies. But I think for sure he's going to start, and that's why we drafted him in the second round. And a lot of people had us picking him in the first round in a lot of mock drafts. So I think he's going to make a big upgrade at center. We still have some question marks at the guard position that we have to work out, but we have an tackle and Andrew Thomas, who I'm extremely high on. I
yeah.
think after Trent Williams, he's considered the best left tackle in the NFL. I think Williams is number one, and then I would put Andrew Thomas number two. So I think, you know, wrap it up. I think we are much better on the offensive line, but it's still my biggest worry going into the season this year.
Well, I mean, only had 2 penalties all year, and then only allowed 3 sacks, which is and he played over 1,000 snaps, I believe last year. So I mean, yeah, that's. I think Trent Williams actually had more penalties than that. I'm pretty sure he had like 5 or 6. So that's the biggest thing with a left tackle, is just not holding. And it's impressive that he only gave up 3 sacks or so. But I did see a question in here. Hold on. Actually, no, different one. We'll get to that comment. But kind of, because I know this is a good question Grandizer has. John Feliciano, the Niners picked him up. He might be our starting. Well, actually, he's going to probably be like a swing player. He's going to probably go from center to guard to um, wherever we need him. I don't think he starts right away because we have a little bit more. We have a few other guys that are going to start over him. But what's to expect from him? Is he good at all? I mean, I had never heard of him when we got him. So
Actually picked him up last offseason as one of our bigger free agent signings because we had such a bad cap situation. Our only
yeah,
two free agent pickups were him and Mark Lewinsky, and they both underperformed, in my opinion. They're not terrible, so I wouldn't be too worried, but If you have to depend on John Feliciano as your starting center for an entire season, I wouldn't be too comfortable with that. He struggled at times, especially in pass protection. So I
Yeah.
consider him a better run blocker than pass protector. And I know the 49ers are usually a run first offense. So he could fit in when it comes to that. He's a tough guy. Um, but at the same time, he does struggle in pass protection. So I wouldn't look at him as some kind of long-term fixture on your offensive line. But as like a swing guard slash center, he has a lot of versatility. He could play like three different positions on the offensive line. I think he's pretty good as a backup offensive lineman um, for the 49ers.
Yeah. Giants still have Kenny G, right? The sweet sounds of Kenny G. Yeah, I mean, that was, I don't want to fill your heart with pain because that was, I feel you there, man. Kenny Galladay was probably one of the worst free agent signings of all time.
For the Giants. We gave him a huge contract. He did not do anything there during his entire tenure. He was either hurt or he underperformed or he dropped passes. It was almost like he wasn't trying at times. Like he didn't even run his routes hard or anything like that. Um, and one of the reasons I'm so excited about this upcoming season is Darren Waller has looked incredible in these mini camp and
Right.
OTA practices. And Daniel Jones has never had that elite pass catcher, either at tight end or wide receiver. I think his best receiver during his career so far has been Sterling Shepard, who's a good slot receiver, but I wouldn't call him elite by any means. And I think that's the reason we overpaid for Kenny Galladay is Jones needs that number one guy, that number like a George Kittle or a Debo
Yeah,
Samuel.
right.
We've never had someone who's elite at his position when it comes to catching the football. And I think Galladay wasn't that guy, but I think it could be Waller. And you know, talking about fantasy football again, I think Waller is somebody that you should definitely target because Kafka loves the tight ends. And we had Daniel Bellinger, a fourth round pick last year, who was kind of our number one target, especially in the red zone at times during the season. So I think Waller is going to be a huge upgrade, and I expect him to get the football a lot this upcoming season.
You're talking about Daniel Jones. Let's move on a little bit to kind of that talk. This was kind of the interesting, I believe he was in year 4 last year. No, 5, year 5. And then the year before that. So a lot of coming into last year, I was like, Daniel Jones not going to get us. And I think a lot of people were with me, not going to get a second contract. And then last year, just everything changes with him. And now he got it was like 35 million, 38 million, something like that. Long-term deal, or I believe it was 3 years. But anyways, what changed from year 4 to 5? I mean, I have kind of a good idea. I think the quarterback, the coaching situation changed. They finally got it right on the coaching situation. Joe Judge was not the right guy. You could see that. And then they got a guy, Brian Daboll, who developed Josh Allen, after what the Bills did this last year, I believe was really a big part of why the Josh Allen was Josh Allen for a big part of his career. And so you brought in Brian Daboll, and you're probably going to agree with me. I knew this was probably your answer, but and then the second kind of question. So is this team capable of winning a Super Bowl with Jones as quarterback, and what changed with his play from year 4 to 5?
Coaching, you hit the nail right on the head when it comes to coaching because Daniel Jones had by far the worst offensive coordinator in the entire NFL
Yeah.
when Jason Garrett was our offensive coordinator. And then
Yeah.
Joe Judge, just look at Mac Jones. Look at the season Mac Jones had last year when Joe Judge was kind of helping out with the offense. And I know Matt Patricia was, I guess, technically the offensive coordinator, but the coaching upgrade it's just night and day. Like receivers are actually running open.
Yeah.
We actually have like competent play caller. Mike Kafka is, I think, going to be a head coach, if not next season, definitely the year after. He's a great offensive coordinator we got from Kansas City. So Jones, one of the worst offensive lines in all of football. His first 4 seasons, I think having Andrew Thomas there as an All-Pro really, helped his confidence. He doesn't fumble the ball anymore. He's using his legs more, and I think that's one of the best things about Brian Daboll is he puts Jones in a position to succeed and uses his strengths. And one of his greatest strengths is he's very athletic, and there's a lot of designed runs where they'll do those like kind of RPO plays where they'll fake it to Saquan and it'll run to the outside. And they've been really successful with that. And I know the 49ers do that kind of thing too. But I think improved receivers, I don't think we've really had great receivers since Daniel Jones has been our quarterback. I think he's going to kind of take that jump. I wouldn't put him in that category with like, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Mahomes, Burrow. He's not in that category of the elite quarterbacks, but I think he's kind of right outside that. I would put him borderline top 10. And I think, the mainstream media, the average NFL fan who's not following the Giants so closely would not put Daniel Jones in the
Right.
top 10, in stratosphere. But I think after this season, they're going to kind of consider Jones a borderline top 10 quarterback because I think he's going to make that jump. I do think the Giants can win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones. I wouldn't predict that to happen this year or next, but I think as this coaching staff kind of gets the players that it wants and we get some elite
Right.
receivers and our offensive line improves, our defense is getting much better, which we haven't even talked about yet. But I do think a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones. I'm not predicting it, but I think it's definitely a possibility.
Well, and the biggest thing with him, you said athleticism. He can go down the field, and you got Jalen Hyatt now. You obviously have Darius Slayton coming back, and it's like, so we're gonna kill you underneath with Hodgins and Saquon Barkley, and then when you're least expecting it, we're gonna do a bootleg and bomb it deep to Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, different players like that. So it gives kind of that flexibility in the offense that you guys need. And I was looking up, so like the consensus top 10 guys are like Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins. I saw a rankings that was like Brock Purdy ahead of Daniel Jones. I do not agree with that. I'm not really sure what a lot of people were thinking, but it's like, is he better than Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson, and Brock Purdy? Maybe. Okay, Deshaun Watson, that's an argument to be made, but then again, it's like he hasn't played at a high level in a few years. You have, Daniel Jones, his confidence after this last year probably has to be at an all-time high. So right now, what I put him ahead of Deshaun Watson, that's possible. There's an argument to be made there. And then Kirk Cousins, I mean, he beat Kirk Cousins in the playoffs and played a lot better than him. So would I put him ahead of Kirk Cousins? That too. So yeah, I think he is close to top 10. I mean, is he better than Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson, all guys that are from like the 10 to 15 range? I think so. I think you can make that argument. Absolutely. So he played the best out of any of those quarterbacks in the playoffs.
Jones is he got better as the season progressed last year. Like he wasn't the same quarterback week 1 as he was in that playoff win against the Vikings. And the entire team was outmatched against the Eagles. Their defensive line just destroyed
Oh,
us. Jones
yeah,
had no
exactly.
time to throw. We didn't have anyone running open. The Eagles have a good secondary as well. So, I think that game against the Eagles left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And I have debates all the time with Giants fans on Giants Twitter who are very much against the Giants giving Daniel Jones that big contract, $40 million a year. Um, so even in the Giants fan base, there's not a consensus on Daniel Jones. A lot of people think he's overrated. They think he's not ever going to be on that elite status of like a Justin Herbert or even like a Tua from the Dolphins. But I think Jones is going to continue to get better. He's a very hard worker. He's very athletic. He's 6'5". He's a legit big quarterback. You could see over the offensive line. So he checks like every box when it comes to what you want in a good quarterback. I think the one thing he needs to improve upon is probably going through his progressions and
Right.
not getting tunnel vision. Um, but thing Dayball has really worked on with him is when that first receiver is not open, he used to kind of panic and just get sacked and fumble. But now he kind of uses his athleticism to buy himself time, and he could run for a first down, or he can kind of continue going through his reads while he's scrambling outside the pocket. So I think he's going to continue getting better. And part of the reason I'm so high on him is because I'm so high on our head coach Brian Dayball, who was Coach of the Year last year. And I think they're going to be a good tandem, and I think he's going to get the most out of Jones.
Right. And shout out before we move on, shout out to Ryan Dayball or Brian Dayball. Sorry. I always get the kind of name mixed up. Brian Dayball. Shout out to him though, because it's like a lot of coaches when they come into the organization just say, I'm going to get rid of the quarterback. I'm going to start it my way. I'm going to get the guy that I want. He came in and said, no, I can work with this guy. I can make something happen. He wasn't the quarterback that I obviously picked, but I'm going to work with this guy. And that's probably in the hiring process. The Giants owners were probably like, you have to work with Daniel Jones and make something happen with him. But still, it's impressive what he was able to do with a quarterback that he didn't really he didn't pick. So yeah.
Because if you remember last offseason, the Giants declined picking up Daniel Jones' fifth-year option. So
Right.
Jones could be on the books right now for a much lesser salary, but they weren't initially sold on him based on his tape during Jones' first 4 seasons. But I think working together closely and seeing the way he progressed throughout the season, I don't think there was any way the Giants were going to let Daniel Jones hit free agency, which is why they ended up giving him such a big salary this year.
Right. Okay. Let's see here. This question we will get to actually next. So stick tight. Grandizer. Is Daniel Jones Daniel Jones no Jimmy Garoppolo though? I think he said means Daniel Jones is no Jimmy Garoppolo though. Yes. I think he's a little bit better than that. Especially what's been coming out about Jimmy Garoppolo and the foot or ankle injury. So, yeah.
I think he's starting to become a little bit underrated because his teams always end up winning. I know he's only really been on San Francisco, but um, he does what's needed to win football games. He obviously made a Super Bowl. He made I think multiple AFC championships as well.
Yeah.
So our NFC championships, but yeah, I think Jones has a little bit higher upside than Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think he's much more athletic. So they're both kind of considered game managers, but I think Jones is higher upside.
Ryan Tannehill everything has to be good, really good or great. I mean, I don't really agree with him on that. I think Daniel Jones with his receiver position, offense or receiver situation, offensive line situation, I think he did really good. And I also think he's just more athletically gifted than Ryan Tannehill. So I would not agree with that at all.
Disagree.
Yeah.
I think Jones had a worse supporting cast than Tannehill has ever had on the Vikings, and I think he was better than Tannehill.
You
Obviously,
mean
last year
the Titans?
the Titans. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So the
No, you're good.
Titans. Yeah, the Titans have they've always had good offensive lines. The Derrick Henry, who's quite possibly the best running back in the entire NFL.
And
I
ever,
don't
I
think
would.
Jones has ever had a really good offensive
Yeah.
line. He obviously has had a good running back, but he's never had good to great receivers. I think Jones is better than Tannehill. I would definitely say that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. This was kind of Grandizer's comment. What would you grade the draft? I have something similar. We talked about so their first 3 picks, they had the guy from Maryland, the cornerback from Maryland, his name Deontay Banks, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, Deontay
Yes.
Banks. Deontay Banks, you had Schmitz, the center. So you had the cornerback from Maryland, Schmitz, the center from Minnesota, one of the best centers they drafted in the second round. And then you had Jalen Hyatt, receiver out of Tennessee. That was a big need. To me, in this draft, they addressed all 3 needs that they really like. They addressed the needs and they filled huge positions that that they needed to fill. And those guys are going to make immediate impacts, in my opinion. But like, what are like, how much of a significant impact are they going to make? Because it's like, are they going to struggle? Which ones? I mean, I would say out of all the three players, the guy that is going to probably struggle the most is Deonte Banks, because it's hard to play cornerback position in the league. Although I really do like what Deonte Banks, cornerback out of Maryland, that you guys drafted. It was like 25th pick. I like how didn't you guys trade up for him, correct? Is that
But and I think he's the perfect fit for the kind of defense we like to run, where we play a lot of man to man. Wink Martindale, if you remember from his time with the
yeah.
Ravens, has always been a really aggressive defensive coordinator, and he kind of leaves his cornerback out on an island. So I do agree. I could see Banks, struggling and having, some rookie mistakes where he might get burned at times. But I think part of the reason they like him is they said he has the memory of a goldfish. So he's gonna forget the bad plays and not let it affect him going forward. So I think John Michael Schmitz is a bona fide starter. No matter what, he's going to start at center for the New York Giants. Um, I think he could struggle a little bit as a rookie as well, just because if you look at the NFC East, there's some
Yeah.
serious monsters on the defensive line. Like the Eagles have, they have Cox, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter they drafted this year. Not Redskins. The Washington Commanders have Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. So those are the kind of guys he's going to be going up against. So he's not used to that type of talent playing at Minnesota in college. So I think it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment, but I think those two guys, Banks and Schmitz, are definitely going to start. And I could see Jalen Hyatt as a backup, kind of getting some reps each game, and then his role kind of increasing as the season goes on.
Well, and the thing that I like the most about Deonte Banks is the measurables that he has to play cornerback. This guy is, I believe it's like 6'1". He ran really I did a lot of draft coverage on each player this year. I don't have the numbers up in front of me. I probably should have done a better job at that. But from what I believe, or what I got earlier on, and when I was covering this guy, is, I mean, his 40 time is really, really good as well. So it's like he's a guy who has length. He has a good 40 time, has really good technique. A lot of time when you see him on film, good at pushing the players towards the sideline and just creating this like he limits receivers and how they can run routes, if you know what I'm saying, because he's so good with his hands off of the line of scrimmage and pushing a guy to where he wants to go. He has strength, length, speed. To me, I ranked him the third best cornerback in the draft, even over Gonzalez, because that's just how much I like him. He had, in my opinion, more competition than Gonzalez. He played in a really good conference with Ohio State guys. Again, he played against guys like I mean, that Maryland game, if you recall that Maryland game, I don't know if you cover college football much, but when they played Ohio State last year, it was close. They almost beat Ohio State, and he was playing guys like Jackson Smith-Njigba, good receivers that. Oh, and the other guy that he was covering was what's his name? Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best receivers that is going to come out of college in a few years. And so and he had a pretty good game against that team. He actually had a good PFF grade. So I mean, this guy really checks all the boxes as far as production goes and just length and technique. I think he's one of the best technique players in the draft, and he has perfect size as well. So
To my ears, like I think that they really hit a home run with that pick. Not only does he have the athleticism, like you said, he has the technique, but he fits our defense perfectly. And
right.
then if you look at the division, who do you got to knock off in the NFC East? It's the Eagles. And the strength on offense is not only can Jalen Hurts run the football, but he has two number one receivers on the
Right.
outside. He has AJ Brown and and Smith. So Brown, you want a bigger cornerback that can actually keep up with him. I think Deonte Banks eventually is going to have to match up with AJ Brown. And then we have a Dory Jackson, who's considered our number one cornerback right now, who I think is a very good football player. I wouldn't put him as a bona fide number one cornerback, but we do have two good corners. with Banks and Jackson, and I think our slot cornerback position is a little bit of a weakness, but we hopefully will improve upon last year in the secondary because I'm pretty high on our defense. I think our defense could possibly be top 10 in the NFL going into next season.
Yeah, my apologies. I got disconnected from my mic. I heard most of what you said. I'm just trying to fix it because let's see. Sorry.
You do live podcasts. It's all good.
Okay. I'm back, right? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I mean, I agree with what you were saying. Before we move on any further, now that we're later into the show, kind of like tell us where you can find your channel and stuff like that. Again, I kind of want to give you another shout out.
Yeah, I think if you go on YouTube and you just type in Giants Alliance, you'll be able to find my channel
Link in the
there.
description. Yep.
Yeah, and I do a lot of highlights. I love New York Giants history as well. So today I actually plan on posting a video, and this is total coincidence, and I'm not doing this to hurt you, but I was planning on posting the 2011 Eli Manning highlights in that NFC Championship
Oh my
game
gosh.
when you guys had 8 Pro Bowlers on your defense, and that 49ers defense was nasty. I'm not gonna lie. But that was Eli's best ever performance, in my opinion. His numbers were not necessarily like jaw dropping or anything like that. But for him to get, I think he got sacked like 5 times. They had 20 pressures. He was hit nonstop. His shoulder pads were on crooked for half the game because he was hit so much. Um, but he was so clutch, especially in those entire playoffs. But the play that sticks out to me, I think it was a 3rd and 15. You guys were up by 4, and he threw that touchdown to Mario Manningham on the left side of the end zone. So I was actually planning on posting that today because I've got a lot of feedback from that highlight on Twitter. So yeah, I like posting highlights, but I also I started the Giants Alliance podcast. I would love to have you on in the future.
Yeah,
You could do a live stream, especially because the Giants and 49ers play each other this year.
they do.
So that could be a fun podcast to do in the lead up to that matchup. So I write for G-Men HQ. I haven't written in a long time. It's a very time consuming thing. I have a baby on the way, so I'm not able to write as much as I would like.
Oh,
But
nice. Congrats.
thank you. Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter as well. I'm pretty active on there at Giants_Alliance. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I will say with the 49ers, we have had a lot of depressing endings that we really could have won like over and over again, and then just like something coincidental. The Ravens Super Bowl, it was the blackout, which I mean, I guess, and the refs were questionable. And then the Giants, it was the muffed kickoff. What muff punt, muff kickoff. I mean, it
Yeah,
was a
it's
long
two
time ago.
muffed punts.
I was
Yeah.
like 4 years old, but I still still remember. I was yeah, it's depressing. But kind of talking about like Xavier McKinney, well, not exactly like this, but do you think because you guys definitely, I mean, we were talking about Deontay Banks and how you guys filled a huge position of need in the cornerback position. And do you think you guys should go out and get Budda Baker? He obviously requested a trade, which wasn't a surprise. And in my opinion, it's like, I mean, why not for the Giants? It's like you guys definitely still need secondary help for sure. So
I have a big question mark at free safety. We had Julian Love last year, who ended up signing with the Seattle Seahawks. But I'm really high on Xavier McKinney. Our defense totally dropped off last year after the bye week because during the bye week, Xavier McKinney decided to ride an ATV on vacation and totally messed up his hand. If you look during minicamp, he still has a wrap on his hand, so
yeah,
he's not 100% recovered. But I'm really high on McKinney. I think he had 5 interceptions as a rookie for the Giants, and he's kind of the only guy in their secondary who I would consider to be a ball hawk. So, I mean, Budda Baker would be amazing, but just like with DeAndre Hopkins, I don't think we're totally in win now mode. And I think we're kind of rebuilding and competing at the same time. So I would love to have him. I think he would make our defense much better, but I just don't see that being the kind of move that our general manager, Joe Shane, would want to make at this point.
Well, yeah, that's something to think about. Grandizer Ben likes when other teams' fans hurt him. He's a victim of the modern age. That's probably true, and I don't like to think about it much because we have had a lot of depressing times as Niners fans, for sure. But let's not stick on that train of thought because I'll probably start crying. No, I'm just kidding. Let's not stick on that. Let's get to the last topic. I know you have stuff to do, and so we're going to wrap it up. But the last topic, predicting the final record that the Giants will have. What are your kind of predictions for their season?
Last year, we were, I believe, 9-7-1. So we kind of overachieved. We were much better than I think
Right.
a lot of people expected. I think we're going to be much better this season, but I think we're going to have a very similar record. So I think we'll be slightly better. I'm predicting 10-7 for the New York Giants for the simple fact that our schedule is much tougher this year. Not only do we play the 49ers, but we play the AFC East, which I think is a really strong division with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. You have the
Yeah.
Bills, the Patriots, the Dolphins. Those are all tough games. Obviously, the Cowboys and the Eagles are tough within the NFC East. We have to split with the Cowboys, I think, to have a chance. Maybe we could squeak out a win against the Eagles, but I'm not counting on it. I think they're still one of the top teams in the league. So I'm predicting 10-7 for the Giants this year.
Well, and I mean, I think week one, that's actually a really critical game looking at it because you have the Raiders. You have the Raiders away, and then you have to turn around and play in Dallas the next week. And so that's that's a double kind of, you're going to be on the road a little bit more. And so I don't know. That's a tough, later on in the year, that I'm talking about later on in the year, the second time you guys play the Cowboys. So I think it's critical you win week one. Not only that, but you have the Cowboys, obviously, as you know, opening up, and then Cardinals, which that should be easy. But then you have 49ers, Seahawks, Dolphins, Bills, 4-game stretch. Those are all tough teams, really tough teams. You have Dolphins and Bills back to back. So, and I believe if right here, you have Dolphins and Bills both away. So that could be a double loss right there. So, I do think that this team is talented enough. And again, if you're a good team in the NFL, you have to prove and you have to win some of those big games. And I think they will, but it is tough, as you said, the division that they're playing. And then again, it is nice because the NFC is not a very strong conference right now, and there's not a lot of good quarterbacks in it. And so I think you guys will be able to get into the playoffs by going 9-8, 10-7, like you said. So
Um, you know, I think the biggest advantage we have going into every game is that Brian Daboll is our head coach. I'm really high on him. I
exactly.
know he's only been head coach for a season, but I've seen enough from him to have that kind of confidence where I feel like going into every game, we're going to have the advantage when it comes to coaching. I think Kyle Shanahan gives you that advantage in most of your matchups. I think he's one of the top
Exactly.
coaches. He's considered to be one of the top coaches, but I put Brian Dable right up there. I think he's one of the top 5 coaches in the league. And he's the reason why I think we will, again, even though we do have that tough schedule, like you said.
Yeah. Well, everyone, let's quickly look at the comments one more time. Giants are still in cap purgatory. Yes, they are trying to get it under control from the last GM. Yeah,
We
I
had
feel bad
a
for you guys.
Yeah, we had a really, really bad general manager in David Gettleman. He overpaid. Not only did he overpay Kenny Galladay, but he made some really questionable trades. He overpaid
Yeah,
Leonard Williams. I think Leonard Williams is a very good player, but he's one of the highest paid players in the NFL. Period. And because of that, we don't really have much salary cap space to play with. But next offseason is when I think we're really going to make that jump because we'll actually have a better salary cap situation.
Yeah, I feel bad. I definitely, the Niners were in that situation from 2015 to it was like 2018. They were just, it was bad. I mean, the 2 and 14 years in 2016 we had just we had two really bad coaches in Chip Kelly, which you guys know him very well because he used to be for the Eagles and he kind of destroyed their whole team. We had him, and then we had Tom Sula, and then it was a mess for a while there. So I feel you. I feel you. But yeah, guys, like Grandizer echoes, thank you for your David Solow for your time, insight, taking questions, and commentary. Much appreciated. Good luck to your Giants. Stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed. Ever upwards. Yeah. So guys, this has been a fun show. Thank you so much for your time, man. You guys can find him on YouTube at Giants Alliance. His website is also in the description. Everything that you should that you need to know about him is mostly in the description. Go check him out on all those platforms. Thank you for joining me.
This was a lot of fun, and hopefully, during the regular season, I'll have you on the show, and we'll talk about the matchup 49ers versus Giants.
For sure, for sure. Well, I'm looking forward to it. So, everyone, this has been a great morning. I'll be obviously posting. I haven't posted a ton of clips after my shows in a while, but I'll be posting a lot more clips. I'm gonna start getting back into this whole channel content creation thing, and we'll have probably a Cowboys content creator on next week, and then I'm hoping a Falcons guy as well. I'm reaching out to different people. So again, guys, if you guys have anyone around the league that you'd like me to collab with, let me know on Twitter. Obviously, my Twitter handles are in the description, Camper1Report or at Camper1Report. So, or just look me up, Benjamin Camperman on Twitter. So, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Have a good rest of your morning. Yeah, we'll see you guys again later. Go Niners. And in this case, you can say go Giants. I don't really care.